Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello, this is Kim Howerton, and this is Keto Life Support, episode 125. Today, you get to listen to a chat I had with Indigo Nili of YouTube. She's got a YouTube channel. It's called Indigo Nili. Her name is actually Neely, so we just call her Neely. And she's amazing. She's a recipe creator. She tinkers with other people's recipes. That's how I found her. Egg white protein bread. She's done so many versions. We discussed that recipe at length in this podcast. And also her journey, how she got into this, and what she's all up about. So enjoy this chat with Neely. I'll put all the links to her stuff in the notes so you can find and subscribe and learn along with me. And enjoy. Hello, welcome to Keto Life Support, if I can remember the name of my own podcast. I am really excited today to be joined by Neely, who you might know on the internet as Indigo Nili, who has a very helpful YouTube channel, especially if you like to make protein bread. So, hey, Neely.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
I heard about you, and I imagine this is true. So has your viewership jumped with the protein bread recipes?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mentioned in passing in one of my grocery haul videos that I was making protein egg white bread for my husband. It was just like a grocery haul, Costco grocery haul. And I got so many people asking, can you show us how to make it? So I made that video, and I think it's somewhere around 700,000 views right now.
Wow.
So definitely a big jump from that.
Yeah. So you've been a recipe creator for a while. So can you tell me, and you're also keto. So tell me your history with both things, like recipe creation, like having a YouTube channel, and your health journey.
Yeah. So my health journey, that kind of starts before my YouTube journey. I got interested in health and wellness back right before I got married at age 21. Back then, the big diet of the day was the Atkins diet. So I always say I did keto before it was keto, did keto before it was cool. I did the Atkins diet, and it was life transformational for me. I lost 40 pounds right before my wedding, the dream.
Did your dress still fit?
I had to get my wedding dress taken in 3 times before my wedding. So it was a terrible problem to have, of course. No, not really. So I did that. And I kind of, from there, started doing more research. And at this point, looking back, I was like, maybe I should have just stuck with the Atkins diet, because I find myself now eating very similarly to the way.
It's so funny. It's so funny how this all you're like, whoa. Wait
exactly.
A minute. Yeah.
So I, went to the next thing that became popular, which was the South Beach diet. And then from there, I started working towards more gut health and got into the paleo world. And I was under the impression that I really needed carbs for health. So I went away from keto for a while. And then back in, I think it was 2011 or so, back when nutritional ketosis, right when the term keto was becoming a thing.
Super early. You were even before any books or anything came out.
Yeah. I remember when keto became the term that was used. So I tried it again then, and then it was very popular, as it kind of is. Again, everything kind of comes and goes, but it was very common to say you can't eat too much protein. If you eat too much protein, it's just as bad as eating too much carbs.
Is that starting up again?
It is. Yes, absolutely. Oy. I mean, for good reason. There's good information on both sides. But anyway, so I was trying really hard to keep my protein really low. Keep your carbs low, of course. Everyone knows that. But then if you don't keep your protein low, it's like you're eating chocolate cake. So I did keto like that, the classic keto. And I ended up really feeling horrible. And I was doing all of the checking your blood sugar, checking your ketones. I was doing everything to get my ketones up, my blood sugar down. I was seeing like, blood sugar in the 70s and the 60s, high ketones, 2s, 3s, and doing everything right. But then I was feeling awful. And the biggest thing for me was that my hunger was out of control. It's like I could eat 3,000 calories of fat and feel like I hadn't eaten anything. And it was just like, miserable. And again, looking back, hindsight is 2020. Looking back, I think just up the protein, just raise the protein.
Right, you were having protein hunger. What Robbenheimer and Simpson of the protein leverage hypothesis
Absolutely.
talk about that protein hunger. Yeah.
When I heard about that, I was like, ding, ding, ding. That is totally me. Because I remember like lying in bed, trying to go to sleep and being so hungry. And then like going to the fridge and like eating a cold burger patty out of the fridge. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, duh, I just needed more protein. Yeah. But at the time I thought I needed carbs because I was doing the keto diet. And if the keto diet doesn't work for you, you have to add back carbs. That's just what you do.
Poor protein. Just kind of kept getting pushed.
I know, poor protein. So I then started again trying to coexist with carbs. And I tried several different diets and kind of never really figured out how to keep my hunger under control, how to feel good and healthy until I heard Kelly Hogan talk on a podcast about carnivore. And it was like I had sworn I would never do keto again because of how bad I felt. And I never wanted to experience that incredible hunger again. And then when I heard her talk about carnivore and how she had been low carb and felt awful and had, cravings and hunger, and then went carnivore, she like the heavens opened and music started and everything. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I was pregnant at the time. So it's like I had to wait. I would always do that because I have 5 kids. And so it's always, my journey has always been like, in pregnancy, I'd be learning about like thinking, what am I going to do to lose the baby weight? And then, wait until the time. And then I try something and then it ended up not working very well. And then I'd get pregnant again and go through the whole cycle. So it was one of those where I had heard about that and I'm like, I'm going to try that. And so as soon as I was finished breastfeeding, I was like, let's do the carnivore. And so I think that was 3.5 to 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Where I did about 3 months of pretty strict carnivore. And I had some really dramatic health benefits from that, like some skin conditions that I'd had for 10 years, like cleared up and never came back, even when I added carbs back. So I was like, this is it, I'm sold. And this kind of coincides with my YouTube and food blogging journey. I got an offer to write a cookbook.
Oh, cool.
With a big publisher. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I can't say no to this. Like I'm doing so well on this carnivore journey. But the publisher had in mind what they wanted for this book. It was part of a series. On my YouTube channel, I had done a whole lot of stuff with Instant Pots. That's kind of how my YouTube channel took off originally. And so it was a specifically Instant Pot cookbook. It was supposed to be the healthy Instant Pot cookbook, which of course no one really knows what that means. And I could kind of take some license and decide what about each recipe was healthy. But they did want me to have, beans and rice and sweet potatoes and, brown rice instead of white rice, that kind of like basic healthier than the standard American diet. So I decided to kind of put my carnivore journey on the back burner. And I was like, lots of people do things that aren't the best for their health in order to, push their career, like sports and all kinds of things. So I was like, I'm just going to do this. It took about a year, or about 9 months really, of recipe creation and testing. And so I started eating carbs again and started eating a healthy diet. And I went through that. So it's kind of like my journey doesn't have a really good start and end.
Like a normal humans, right?
Yeah. I feel like people relate better to those kind of stories anyway. At least I do. So I went through that whole year. And then after that, I knew I wanted to get back onto some kind of a carnivore-ish, basically something low carb that also had enough protein that it kept my hunger and satiety in check. So then I I really struggled with the idea of going full carnivore forever. I knew I felt good on it, but I was like, that just cuts out such a big part of my life because I mean, I do have a YouTube channel that's devoted to food. And I mean, it's just such a big part of my life. And I just wrote a cookbook, like I'm a cookbook author now. And so I just went back and forth for a lot of months and ended up getting to the place where I decided that I could get most of the benefits from just going keto with higher protein that I would have going full carnivore. And it was worth it to me to have that kind of a diet and kind of work through the complexity of what that means. And I've talked about like carnivore would be way simpler, you know,
Right.
if I could just get rid of all of the stuff in my brain about food and just say, I'm just going to eat carnivore, it would be simpler. But sometimes good things in life are complicated and are worth the work. So I kind of have taken that journey, and basically my YouTube channel is following me through that journey. So my YouTube channel has taken a lot of twists and turns over the years. I'm coming up on my 11-year anniversary on YouTube, which is crazy. So back when I started, so now I'll tell you a little bit about like my YouTube journey and how I became a YouTuber, which still blows my mind. So I started back in around 2011, I think in October. So it's really coming up my anniversary. And I never, like at that time, being a YouTuber wasn't really a thing. Like maybe that was just the beginning.
Right. It was early. You were an early adopter.
I had no like concept in my mind that I was gonna, you know, become famous or make money at all. I actually didn't even make my videos for the general public. I was doing a diet, and I wanted to stay in touch with a specific group of people that were doing the same diet. So we would make videos back and forth for each other each day, you know, and do the diet together.
It's like a little blog, almost like a communication within a group of people. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. And so I remember like not tagging my videos at all and not putting anything in the description that someone might accidentally find, you know. And so I started doing that and shared a few recipes on videos, and it kind of just slowly grew. And it was when I started doing Instant Pot stuff, where I had gotten an Instant Pot right when they became popular, and I posted some videos about that, and those like went crazy. Like to me, had almost no subscribers, and
it is relative. It is, these numbers are all relative,
exactly.
But when you're out of your comfort zone in terms of what you expect, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so I posted this video of doing a whole chicken in the Instant Pot. It's like I had a cold that day, so I was all congested, and it was like this really short video, and it ended up getting 500,000 views. And so that's kind of what spurred me on to make more content for everyone rather than just this small little group, and started actually tagging my videos and stuff like that. So I did that and shared recipes and a lot of Instant Pot stuff. And I also, at the same time, was sharing whatever diet I was on at the time. And I do Wellness Wednesday videos, just an update every week about what was going on with whatever diet. I did the Trim Healthy Mama diet. That's what I went to after keto, because I thought that I needed the carbs, because they have the low carb meals, but then they also have high carb, low fat meals. And that, worked for me for a time and was a good way to transition out of keto. I kept sharing for a while about my diet and all of that. And it finally got to the point where I kind of got sick of it. I both got sick of like the criticism, which is very, it just comes with the territory. And then also I felt like I didn't have it figured out. Like I didn't want to keep sharing about what I was trying because I didn't know if it was going to be the thing. And so I took a break from that and just shared regular recipes, grocery hauls, and didn't really talk about diet for a long time. And then it was when I started sharing about the egg white bread that I started getting an audience that was really interested in keto.
Right.
and my recipes, my keto recipes specifically. Because before, if I shared a keto recipe, I'd get no views on it. And then once I started sharing about the egg white bread, my audience really changed. And there was a lot of desire for that kind of recipe. So I started posting a lot more of that. I started posting Wellness Wednesdays again. And that was right when it was about a year after I first did my carnivore experiment and decided that this was at least something like this was going to be a way of life.
You were like in the arena.
Exactly. So it's like, I felt like I had it figured out enough that I was ready to start sharing again. And I'm not there yet. And people enjoy following the journey, but I'm always experimenting. I've recently found that I have some pretty serious health issues and nutrient deficiencies that I'm trying to get fixed that, diet alone didn't fix. So it's a journey. I have not arrived, but anyone that
I always say no one is an after.
Yeah.
Like if you're an after, you're dead. So might as well be a journey.
Or you're lying.
I am perfect. Now.
Exactly.
Everything.
Exactly. I don't tend to follow those people.
Well, yeah, because I
can't relate.
They can only be useful if you feel like making yourself feel bad. Then if you like that, then they might be useful.
Maybe it's motivational, but
well, I don't know because they're lying. I don't know anyone who's perfect.
True. Well, Dr. Barry.
He's not perfect. He's amazing, wonderful, but what's the things about him that aren't perfect make him better.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Like the ways that he makes a bad joke and you jab him in the ribs, that makes him better than if you couldn't do that. So human.
Yeah. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Yeah. It's just up and down, back and forth, trying to get things figured out. Once I get it all figured out, I'll probably die.
Because you'll be done. Your work here is done.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's a lot. So that book that you wrote, the Instant Pot book, did that get published and is out in the world?
Yeah. I was just at Barnes & Noble the other day, and I always have to check, and there were 2 copies on the shelf. It was so exciting. Yeah, it's called the Healthy Instant Pot Mini Cookbook. So it's specifically for the 3-quart Instant Pot. So it's a lot of 2-person recipes. Nice. I did try to get as many keto recipes in there as I could because each recipe had to be labeled with how it's healthy, dairy-free or grain-free or keto or, vegan or whatever. There's not a lot of vegan recipes, but I would either, make a recipe keto or add a little note at the bottom of how you can make it keto. So there are a few keto recipes in there, as many as I could manage.
Right. So I'll just let people know that don't know who've been living under a rock. Marie Emmerich is a very famous keto person, recipe creator. She started as a recipe creator and is now kind of a recipe creator / educator, right?
Yep.
Tell me if you disagree with anything I'm saying here. And she probably has sold the most keto cookbooks of any keto cookbook maker that I'm aware of.
Yep, absolutely.
And has the most numerous, she's got a lot of different cookbooks.
She's been doing it for years. I remember way back when it wasn't even keto before. She was one of those original.
Yeah, ones. One of the very first keto books that came out, she put some recipes into it. So she's been doing it a long time. And a big contributor to the arena.
Absolutely.
And you made one of her, so she made a recipe. You took that recipe and you changed it up and made some alterations. Now, anyone who cooks, I think, does this, right? We're like, a little of this, a little of that, a little of this.
You make it your own.
Exactly. But you found them significantly different. And so this protein bread, which I think if you're looking for it in the original form, is called the Protein Sparing Modified Fast Bread, or PSMF.
Yep.
Make sure I get those in the right order. And then what do you call it, though?
I just call it egg white bread. I've always called it that because I just thought PSMF bread is so confusing. And unless you're already in the world of keto and PSMF, it's just, I felt like I was going to have to explain it so many times that I just called it egg white bread, which made sense to me. Right.
Because I think probably if I put thoughts in someone else's head, which I'm just making up, I would guess that because Maria does suggest people do protein sparing modified fast, that she was making, originally she thought, people can use this bread during those times. But a lot of people use this bread just as bread. And so I agree. It makes more sense to call it something else. You call it.
I think she labels most of her recipes like PSMF ice cream or keto ice cream, depending on where it fits. So it makes sense.
Right. Totally. And so I call it protein bread. So see, we all call it our own thing, which is confusing, but also clear, depending.
Right.
And so I remember the first video I saw that you made, and I must have just come across it. Somebody shared it somewhere. Was like a stromboli kind of thing. It was, maybe that's not the word you use, but it was like pizza squares or
I did like
pizza pockets. Pizza
pockets. Yeah.
It was the pizza pockets. And I thought, well, she's onto something here. Like, because you made the egg white bread batter, but then filled it and made sort of a layered thing.
Yes, like a pocket. And that's part of the reason why I didn't call it PSMF bread. Because some people will call any egg white bread or any egg white bread product PSMF bread. Right. But when you're adding cheese and pepperoni, it no longer
applies. Or if you're spreading butter on your PSMF bread, is it still PSMF? Oh, yeah.
No. So that's why I just tried to avoid that confusion altogether just by saying egg white bread.
Right. And I then went from that thing you did, and I started making like other sweet versions of that, more like breakfast or like Danishy things. And then you were doing that. And I think everybody just sort of started rolling with it. Yeah.
It was popping there for a while.
Yeah. Have you noticed it's cresting, it's slowing?
I think so. It was a really, everyone was really excited about it. I don't know, a year ago was when it started. And then of course through the holidays, I'm sure it'll make a resurgence in the holidays when people are making holiday treats and stuff. But now it feels like a lot of the community is going back to higher fat and lower protein. So the protein bread has kind of fallen out of favor with some people. But like I said, everything it comes and goes. So I'm sure it'll be back. But it hasn't gone away. Like every time I post a video with some kind of a variation or new idea or recipe testing, ingredient testing, those are my highest viewed videos by far. Yeah. There's definitely still a lot of people wanting info about it and still making it.
Right. And I'd been making a bread for not decades. It feels like decades.
Yes.
For a long time. That was just based on cloud bread, which really, if you get to the roots of what this bread is, it's still kind of like cloud bread. It's like,
absolutely,
it's that whipped egg white sort of basis of bread making.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But the main version you started making, let's talk about a controversial topic.
Oh dear.
Arrowroot flour.
Yes.
So you started making a version, which is, by the way, I've made my own version of your version, and I say it's like a game of telephone, right? Every time you make, But I think the arrowroot flour does amazing things.
I agree.
I have not tried the acacia fiber yet, but I hear that does similar things.
Similar. It gives the bread a really doughy texture. So I tend to like it more in like buns.
Okay.
Because when the bread is really doughy, there's just too much inside and it gets too gummy in the middle. But when you have like a bun where you're just taking a bite out of the whole thing, it works. And there's a lot more surface area, the crispy surface area.
Oh, okay.
It works to have it makes it a little bit biscuity, I think.
Right.
So yeah, but arrowroot.
Yeah. So once upon a time, I think all of us have gone through various phases, as you have mentioned. Like I was once very stridently 20 grams and under keto, like no variation keto, very by the book. And at the time, Eric Berg had a recipe up on YouTube that was like the world's best bread. And I remember being incensed by this bread. It haunted me. Because it was made with a lot of arrowroot flour.
Really?
Not just a little. Now, I think it's been altered since then. At the time, it was like mostly arrowroot flour.
Oh my gosh. Was he low carb at the time?
He was calling it keto bread.
Oh,
so it was, I think it had like a cup or something. And, it was enough that I was like, whoa. So, I mean, the thing that I'm dancing around here, just not purposely, but I just can't keep a point in my head, is arrowroot flour is pretty carby.
Yes.
It's actually tablespoon to tablespoon has more carbs, I think, than refined flour.
Yeah, it's about the same as cornstarch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pure starch.
It is a pure starch. And a lot of keto people obviously are going to say, well, hold up there. We're not supposed to have things like that because it's so carby. And then I say, well, how much is there in the recipe?
2 tablespoons.
Right.
Yeah. And I even always say it's optional.
Yeah.
You can reduce it to 1. You can take it out. It still works. I think it's better with.
Right. Now, why arrowroot flour as opposed to, say, wheat flour?
Well, I am sensitive to gluten.
Yeah.
And wheat. I mean, I don't know if it's the gluten or the wheat. You know, celiac disease runs in my family. It's just not something I ever touch. I feel like it's more problematic for a lot of people, if not most people.
Right.
Arrowroot starch is very well tolerated. It's a starch. So people that don't tolerate starch and they can't handle it metabolically, it's not, I mean, maybe they should avoid it completely.
Right.
But it doesn't have all the, additional things that make it, irritating to the gut and all that stuff. So that's why I would even consider it. And then I wouldn't add a cup to the recipe because metabolically that would be too much for me.
People are going to come for me for criticizing somebody, but it has to be said sometimes.
I haven't heard him talk about it recently. So
no, this is like a 5 or 6 or 10-year-old. It's an old video, but I remember coming across it and being like, what is happening? Anyway.
Well, one thing that I love to say or respond to people is anything can be keto if you slice it small enough. I forget who said that, Jeff Olick or something.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like we eat berries. Right. They have sugar in them. It's the same sugar as in something else, like in your sugar jar.
You put a teaspoon of baking soda or, there's a little bit of carb in that. There's a little bit of carb in that. It's really
baking
about...
powder has cornstarch.
Oh, that's what I meant to say. Baking powder. It's like, I think there are 2 things that people get confused. And I didn't get this. I wasn't clear about this when I started either. So this is no criticism, but it's like there are ingredients that might be problematic for people, like wheat, like gluten, like anything you're particularly allergic to, right? So there's an ingredient issue. And then the second part is there is a cumulative carb issue.
Exactly.
And they are separate from each other.
Yeah. So I feel like the carb amount, that's what makes a food keto friendly. I mean, obviously keto is a metabolic state and not a list of foods. But if you're trying to find something that's keto friendly, it has to do with the carb amount. So there are tons of recipes out there online that have vital wheat gluten in them. And they're keto because the carb amount is low enough. But then it's kind of like you have to decide for yourself completely separately, what foods am I sensitive to within the keto world? And so, for example, my son is allergic to eggs. And so he's not going to go on a keto diet and say, eggs are keto.
But eggs are keto, so I'm going to eat them.
He vomits and he eats them. So he's not going to eat them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like 2 separate issues. So people want to just say, I do the keto diet and all of these rules should be within the keto diet realm. But I think you can only apply carb count to if a food is keto friendly or not. And then beyond that, you have to decide if you're eating a gut friendly diet or, whatever it is that you choose is important to you. Right.
Because I think there's just well-formulated diet, period, in any milieu, right? There is I'm not a supporter of vegan diets necessarily, but you can create a vegan diet that is disastrously junk food laden, not a lot of nutrition in it, or you can formulate it the best possible way it can look with whole foods and more nutrients. So every diet can be poorly or well formulated.
Including keto. You could go get the Atkins shakes and now Slim Fast has all kinds of keto fat bombs and stuff. And you could just eat that all day and might be healthier than a junk food vegan diet. I don't know, but it's still not going to be optimal probably.
Right. So for me, it's a 2-prong thing, or I don't know how many prongs. It's a lot of prongs, right? It's, are you choosing the right kinds of foods? And then what metabolic state do you want to be in? And what choices there.
Exactly.
So,
So for the arrowroot, it's like if the addition of 2 tablespoons of arrowroot, which adds, I think, less than a carb per slice of bread.
I think when I slice it like 14 slices, it comes out to be like 1 carb a
Yeah.
slice, or maybe 0.9 grams.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that's worth it. And that's what I always say in my videos is it's worth it to me because of how it enhances the flavor and the texture. But if you're going for the lowest carb count possible, you can omit it. And everyone, can make their own choice. And I do understand people wanting the simplicity of this is a yes food, this is a no food.
Totally.
Because as soon as they see my recipe labeled keto and they see arrowroot in it, maybe they're going to say, oh, arrowroot is keto, and they're going to start adding it to all kinds of things if they don't have a little bit deeper understanding of the diet. So I understand like different educators wanting to just say, no arrowroot, period.
Yeah, look at the ingredient label, and if it has X, Y, or Z, then it's a no.
And people need that. People need
I was
that
that
at the beginning.
Time. Yeah.
But I feel like, I've been doing this for, 15 years. It's like, I'm going to make up my own rules now. So, and because I have the, understanding of it's more about the total amount that I'm getting in the day rather than the specific ingredient, I feel like I can make those decisions. And I just hope I'm not confusing too many like newbies thinking, oh, arrowroot is a keto food.
Right. It's challenging because there really are two populations. I apparently like to keep things in buckets, by the way. There's like the new people, and then the people who are like, hey, I've been doing this a long time. I need to make it work for my life.
Yes.
And maybe don't want it. Yeah. So dogmatic. But then you're like, but not to confuse the newbies.
Exactly. Yeah. And you always run that risk.
Yeah, totally. So you have on your website, and I'll put the links in any place this appears, but on your recipe, you kind of finally, because you like to experiment, so you finally settled on the version you think you like best.
Yeah, I titled it My Best Loaf Recipe Yet, because I have people, frustrated that I have so many variations, and they're like, you need to delete all of the other videos and just have one. And I'm like, where's the fun in that? So I said yet because I'll still experiment. I love baking, and I'll still be, working with different ingredients and testing things out. And if I find something better, I'll put another one up. And I hope that doesn't make people angry.
No, I think it's good. But I think it's good to have like one, because I remember at one point I was like, which YouTube video am I looking for?
I know, it is confusing.
Yeah. So your recipe, you use egg white powder. Mm-hmm. You did a video on this, and I think it was very helpful. Egg white powder is shockingly expensive.
Yes, and especially within the last 6 months, it's like doubled in price.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And so people out there in the world, we are sorry that egg white powder is so expensive. You can make a version of this bread with just eggs.
You can't.
You can't?
You have to have at least some egg white powder.
Oh, that's true.
You're
absolutely right.
Do it with like half fresh egg whites and half egg white powder.
Right.
But I have not found a way to make it with all fresh egg whites.
Right.
Which is sad. And I've tried a lot.
You can make oopsie rolls with just eggs and a little something else.
Cream cheese, right?
Cream cheese. You can also do it with yogurt or sour cream.
Yeah, I don't know that would work like in a loaf.
I don't think it would.
I think the middle would be gooey.
Yeah.
But it works in the little rolls.
Yeah. But you can do it with other protein powders.
Yeah, I have not experimented with other protein powders. I've heard some horror stories about how they fail, and then other people say that it works great, and I haven't done it yet.
Sugar-Free Mom, do you know her?
I've heard of her, yeah.
She has something called, just for people out there who are like, what can I do? She has something called, I think it's called Cloud Bread Loaf that she makes, and I think she uses whey protein in that.
Okay.
So anyway, whey protein is less expensive.
I need to experiment with that.
Yeah.
I was doing dairy-free for quite a long time, so I just was not even touching the whey powder, but I feel like I need to now, especially with the prices the way they are.
Yeah. Anyway, so there are other versions out there. By the way, if you do get into dairy, I have a tip for you.
I'm back into dairy again.
Okay. So, casein and whey mixes, like Keto Chow uses dairy protein, so it's part casein and part whey, are better for baking than pure whey, because whey makes things really dry. So a tip is I always use a dairy protein or a casein whey mix when I can.
Okay, I'll have to try that. I know that a lot of people make the bread with Keto Chow powder.
Yeah.
And get a great result. So they have that milk protein, and then also acacia fiber in there, I'm sure helps as well.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. But yeah, I've baked a lot with keto chow.
Yeah.
I do a lot of kind of like oopsie buns where I then add in the keto chow, and it works really good.
I bet that's really good. So many flavor options.
I know. Okay. All right. So back to the recipe. It's basically you use egg white powder, water. Now, interestingly, you mentioned this, and I'd never heard this before. You use cream of tartar, not just for fluffiness or stability, because we know cream of tartar helps stabilize egg whites, right?
Yes.
But for flavor as well.
Yes. I noticed this. I think I accidentally put in too much one time. And I tasted it, and it tasted almost like sourdough.
Yeah.
Because cream of tartar has a lot of potassium in it.
Okay.
It's a product of fermentation. So it makes sense that it would have like a sour taste. And so I tried it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it tastes nice and tangy. And I liked it. So
I thought that was a butter powder, but apparently it's not.
Yeah. So when I experimented with buttermilk powder, I got a similar effect. But I think the cream of tartar really gives that nice acidic sourdoughish taste. And I mean, it takes... Because, I mean, the bread itself, without any kinds of flavors or anything added, it's pretty bland.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, bread doesn't have to be super flavorful because you're adding all kinds of stuff to it.
Wonder bread is pretty bland, too. It's just
exactly.
Sweet. Yeah.
But having that little bit of a tang to it and the saltiness from the Redmond real salt, it's just good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's a sourdough quality.
Yes.
So then it's salt.
Allulose. Is important.
It really helps the external texture a lot.
Yes, it helps the texture of the whole thing, and then it helps it brown.
Yeah.
I get so many comments and messages saying, I followed your recipe exactly, and it didn't brown at all. What's the problem? And I just write back and say, did you use allulose? And every time they write back, oh no, I used erythritol instead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you have to use the allulose. They're not interchangeable. If you want it to turn out, with the nice brown color, you have to use a little bit of allulose, and you can reduce it and still get that browning, like even just a tablespoon, you can get a nice browning effect. I use 1/4 of a cup because I just like how it turns out, but it just really makes the texture really, really good. And it's not used for sweetness necessarily. People think, oh, I don't want a sweet bread, I'm going to skip it.
Right.
It doesn't really make the bread sweet.
It does reduce how do I want to say this? It just makes it sort of almost neutral, because sometimes without it, I think you get more egg white flavor.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Yeah. And then at the end, so once it's all whipped up, then you fold in butter powder, and you also do some whole yolk powder.
Yes, you can do whole egg or yolk powder, and you have to add those things at the end after it's all whipped up. If you try to add them at the beginning, it will not whip. So it's always my big disclaimer, because you will waste all of your very expensive ingredients, which no one wants to do.
No, it's very bad. Yeah. I have a funny story, which is the first time I made it, I didn't watch your video yet about the warning about the keto chow product.
Yes.
Now they fixed it, guys. So this is not.
Did they take out the sunflower? Oh,
they did.
Wow.
They did.
I didn't know that.
They had added some sunflower lecithin, which was not a problem, except it actually made it not whip as fast. So it eventually whipped.
Yes.
But it would take forever. I threw out 3 batches, being like, what am I doing wrong? And then I was like, okay, there must be. So I Google and I find your video where you're like, hey. And I was like, oh. And so it had to whip for like 10 minutes before it started to come together.
That's exactly what I found.
But yeah,
minutes, and it made like this giant mess everywhere.
Oh, the walls had egg. I started to have to after the first time I did it, I was like draping a towel over my mixer, and I'd have to clean under the top of the mix, all cake. Anyway, they fixed it, people. They fixed it. Please, we love keto chow people.
Yes,
do not send them angry emails. They fixed it.
I think the reason that they added it was because they wanted it to easily mix into shakes, which it does. The sunflower lecithin is great for getting it to emulsify into shakes. So if you're using it for that, it's a great ingredient to add.
They may still sell that one, but they have one that's clearly labeled just egg white.
Nice.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, they fixed it. I was like, oh, Miriam.
Yeah, I bet they got that question a lot. I can imagine people trying to whip it up. Yep.
Yeah. They're such good people. I think what probably happened is they were like, let's make it as great as possible and it's unforeseen context. But anyway.
Yeah, but they're so great about listening to feedback and then coming out and, making it right.
Awesome. They'll bend over backwards for you.
Yes.
I always joke, I don't know if you've ever met them in person, but if you ever have a party, you want the Keto Chow crew to come. Bet. Because your house will be clean, the dishes will be done. You're like, what are you?
Right.
You're a guest. What are you doing here? They are pitching in. Anything you need, they're on it.
They're awesome. I love them so much.
Yeah. Okay. And so you can't put fat. Anyone who's ever made a meringue hopefully knows can't whip egg whites properly with fat in them.
Yes. And then humidity is another thing that gets people every time. And that's one of the most frustrating things for me as a recipe creator is I get comments and messages from people saying, it didn't whip up and I did exactly what you did and I couldn't get it to whip. And I'm like, egg whites have a mind of their own. The weather is like another ingredient that I can't control.
Right.
And it's I just have to put that disclaimer out there that your kitchen and your environment is going to have an effect. And I'm sorry. My big tip though is if you get a batter that doesn't whip up completely, it usually at least gets a little bit frothy. You can cook it like pancakes on a griddle and they taste great. So don't throw it away. Just cook it like pancakes.
You can also try throwing in a few whole egg whites sometimes, and sometimes that can save it. Also, Martha Stewart's channel, it's not Martha Stewart, but it's on Martha Stewart's channel. If you've never whipped egg whites before, there's a great video that's this is stiff peaks. This is soft peaks.
That's awesome.
I find a lot of people don't know they are stopping before it's ready.
Yeah, because there are different degrees of stiffness.
Yeah. I usually say it should look like Barbasol shaving cream.
Yes, shaving cream is a good one.
Yeah. So
very appetizing.
Yeah, totally. That is different. I've recently started adding a whole real egg yolk at the end. It definitely deflates it. It definitely falls, but it makes it a lot less dry.
Yeah. So I found that if you can get the batter to fall a little bit by adding the fats, different kinds of fats, it actually helps the end result of the bread texture. Yeah. Because it gives the bigger air bubbles because it's it's not as the dense, memory foam texture.
Right.
And I just recently did a video where I experimented with adding fresh yolk and fresh butter instead of butter powder.
Oh, yeah.
And I was surprised by the result. But the thing is that I figured out exactly how much egg yolk and butter I was adding as butter powder and egg yolk powder. And it's very, very small. So it was only half of an egg yolk. And I forget how much butter, but it was a tablespoon. It was a very, very tiny amount.
Yeah.
And adding that tiny amount, I still got a really good texture with the bread. It was a little bit more wet than with the powders alone. So I still prefer the powders, but if you're wanting to save money, you can do it. It just doesn't work as well when you add 3 or 4 or 5 egg yolks.
Oh yeah, no, not for a loaf. At least
just a tiny bit.
Yeah, I found it worked fine with one. I was I'm sure this is more than, but I want to see what happens, and I liked it a lot.
And you did the butter powder too?
I did butter powder and an egg yolk. Now, what I did is I added the butter powder, gave it a few turns to get that distributed, because powder distributes better than liquid. Yes. And then I scooped out a honkin' scoop of the egg white, put it in the bowl with the egg yolk, beat that together so that I wasn't just dropping an egg white in a sea of foam. Right, so I made egg yolk. I made egg yolk foam, and then I folded that in.
That's smart.
That's a method that I found works better when trying to combine. It's hard to combine liquid and foam. Yeah. So you have to foam the liquid to put it in the foam.
Right. Yeah, that's a great tip.
Yeah. And by the way, we didn't tell people if they don't know. The reason that we're trying to add fat back to this egg white situation is that egg whites have many, many great characteristics, but good texture of eating is not one of them.
Yeah, the fat really does help.
Yeah. It's not so much even about I don't want it to be so lean, right? Because you can add butter to the surface. It's literally if I ate the bread without any added fat, I feel like I'm choking.
Yeah.
It's so dry.
Yeah, it's so dry. Choky is the
Choky is what
term
they call
that
it.
has been used. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a highly recommended. So you can skip the arrowroot, but I wouldn't skip the added fat at the end.
Yes. And one thing about the fat is even when you follow like the recipe as I have it with a quarter cup of butter powder and 2 teaspoons of yolk powder, it's still very low fat. Like it still fits easily into like if I do a protein sparing modified fast day, it's like, I don't know, 1 or 2 grams of fat per slice. So very easy.
Yeah.
In there if that's
I have it in my little tracker here. It's, when did I eat it? I'm looking. Yeah, 1 slice for me of the bread. Now this depends on how you slice it. Without the allulose included it's about 40 calories, about 6 grams of protein, about 1 gram of fat, and about 1.5.
Still
carbs.
Super protein sparing modified fast friendly.
Yeah. So it's less, it's kind of like chicken breast, right? Like
everything's got a little bit of fat in it.
Right. You don't want no fat.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, not to go on about the bread, but that was sort of a pivotal thing. And a lot of people are really into it. What's now got your attention in terms of cooking?
A few months ago, I was really working hard on wraps, like the egg white wraps, and turning them into like a pasta substitute. That was really fun. So I have a video called Carnivore Pasta that a lot of people have enjoyed, and that's been fun. Right now, another one that I recently did that was really fun is the egg yolk waffles. Those have become really popular in the last few months because people are going a little higher fat. And if you're using egg whites for your bread and you have a ton of egg yolks left over, it's great to have some recipes. So those have been really good. I tried those a couple of years ago when they were popular back then. And for whatever reason, I did not like them at all. And then I was like, I'm just going to try them one more time because everyone kept raving about them. And I tried them again and they were great. So I don't know what I did wrong back then.
So what's in egg yolk waffles?
So it's the recipe is very simple. It's 4 egg yolks, a tablespoon of melted butter, and a half a teaspoon of baking powder.
So it's very, very high fat waffle.
It's very, very high fat. And you just cook it on the waffle maker and they turn out to be these beautiful little like Eggo waffles, like seriously gorgeous. And so that's the base recipe, which is great for a plain waffle. And I started playing with it with Perfect Keto MCT oil powder. And they have all these great flavors. So I made some strawberry ones, some cinnamon toast ones, and those were really, really good. So I love a diet where you eat whole foods. I think unless you're really focusing on trying to do like a protein sparing modified fast or something, or like a really therapeutic high fat keto diet, I think probably the good, middle ground where I feel like I am and want to stay is eating whole foods. So if I'm going to be eating a whole bunch of egg white bread, I also want to eat the yolks. So finding a way that I can do that has been really helpful. So I'm enjoying, both. And then I end up eating the whole egg and that makes me happy.
Right. I mean, I will say that, regardless of, so there are, like we were talking about earlier, there are ingredients and there are macros for ketosis. There are also nutrients and versus macros, right? And certain parts of, like the yolk is the most nutrient. It's not that an egg white is bad for you. It's just that 90% of the good for you stuff is in the yolk.
Yes. And I, like I said earlier, I recently found out that I was dealing with some nutrient deficiencies. So I had been doing like some more protein sparing modified fasts and trying to lose weight because I kind of felt like I was in a good, healthy place, not knowing that I had these underlying things. And so now I'm really focusing more on the nutrition and making sure that I keep my nutrient levels up. And so I'm not doing, it's like if I do make the egg white bread, which I still do enjoy on my regular diet, I want to make sure I'm also balancing that with the other parts that have all those nutrients that I don't want to miss out on.
Right. And on a diet that's very, very low in calories, it's just going to be almost impossible to be in a nutrient surplus.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one reason I really like the protein sparing modified fast for weight loss is because it's not meant to be an everyday thing. Like I would never say you should eat protein sparing modified fast every day. Like that shouldn't be your diet. And I love that you can do it and then you can go back to a high fat, very nutrient rich diet the very next day. and you kind of keep yourself out of those nutrient issues that way. But just because of the stuff I have underlying, I'm like, I'm not even going to touch that for now. That'll be for when I, have all of my nutrient stores in where they're supposed to be and, very healthy. And then maybe my body can handle that in order to lose some more weight. But until then, I'm just eating fat and being happy.
Nice. I like it. What else should the audience know about you? What's going on? What would you like them to do if you have instructions? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm Indigo Nili on YouTube, so you can find me there. I don't see myself as like an educator or, an authority or a keto guru or anything like that. It's never been my intention. What I want to offer is just my experience, like follow along with me on my journey. Let's, do things together. It's kind of like a window into my life and into my wellness journey. So if you're interested in that, then come along. But yeah, that's kind of just who I am and what I do and just trying to have fun along the way.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I super appreciate you coming on and talking to us today and people getting to know you. I'm sure people already know who you are, but getting to know a little bit more about you. And I've been pleased with your recipes in that when I see in you, when I'm watching them, I'm like, oh, I see what she's thinking here. She explains things well, and it can help other people who like to tinker, maybe skip a few steps, avoid a few confusion points about something, and then, embrace their own creativity.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. And I just got your new lab book.
Oh, yeah.
And that is amazing. Super helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Happy you got a copy. Yeah, Dr. Barry and I put our heads together on that one. Definitely the medical information would be from Dr. Barry. The life experience was definitely from both of us as well.
Important.
Yeah. So, but I think it's really important that people know the basics. And also, it's interesting. We got somebody the other day who was like, there are a lot of tests that are not in here. And, Dr. Barry and I had a conversation about that. And he was like, yeah, because there are a lot of doctors out there that send you for a lot of tests you don't need.
Yeah.
So true. It's both. It's like the tests you don't know you need and the tests you probably don't need.
Yes.
Wanting to clarify.
That's where I've been, where it's like, there's like 1,000 tests and things you could do and take. And it's like, you need a good doctor to help you narrow it down to what's most important for you. And I feel like your book and Dr. Barry's book really does that for people on a broad scale. So very thankful for that resource.
Appreciate that. Yeah. It can't be all things to all people, but it's got to be the right thing for the right people.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate that you got a copy. I didn't even know about that. We'll have to get you a signed copy when the books get shipped out.
That'd be great.
All right. Cool beans. Thanks for joining me. And I will make sure people can find you on all the socials that you want me to give them when this gets put up.
All right. Thanks, Kim.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam.